I think there are some pretty clear lessons about what we need from a Labour Prime Minister on issues of international development. First of all, we need presence internationally and courage internationally to lead the debate, not just follow the debate. I think Tony and Gordon both showed what it means to be an international leader, not just in word but in deed. The fact that Britain is now recognised probably as the leader in international development isn't just that we have the best words, it isn't even just that we are on track to fulfil our 0.7% commitment. I think one of the things that's really important is that we've joined up the aid agenda with the conflict prevention agenda, with the trade agenda, and with a difficult agenda about good government. We haven't been afraid to say that corruption is a scourge in developing countries, or some developing countries, and that any sensible international development policy is able to take that on. I also think Douglas deserves a lot of credit for the way in which he put the issue of fragile states on the agenda in the DFID white paper last year, because we've got to be clear that we have extra issues to tackle, notably in places like Afghanistan, after all the fourth or fifth poorest country in the world. And so I think we need someone who can fight for the right values, but also someone who can lead debate and build coalitions that can achieve real change. Well, I think it's good for Britain that we've got a strong financial services sector, and I want to keep a strong financial services sector, certainly a world-leading financial services sector which provides tens of thousands of jobs to many people on middle incomes in Britain, not just high rollers. Equally, it's obvious that since capital has gone international, taxation has to go international as well. And that is the very strong case for the so-called Robin Hood tax, the financial transactions tax. That's definitely the right way to go for the future. It's essential that we make sure that responsibilities and checks and balances are properly put into the system, and I think that's a clear place to go. We've got to make sure that we spend the money in the right ways, but I think it's definitely the way to go. Well, I think our ministers from the Prime Minister down did a lot on that. Even the CAP got reformed a bit, and the vision for the CAP in 2020 with the end of the direct subsidies was, I think, a really good vision, and one that needs to be fought for by the new government. It'll be difficult given their lack of alliances in Europe. I think that the frustrations of the so-called Doha development round, which turned out not to be a development round at all, are real. But I think that we've got to just keep up the pressure on the current government, because there's a danger that we get into a syndrome where people say just because you're making your aid commitments you don't have to do anything else. And I think it's really important that we do the full panoply of interventions that support international development. I think the first job of the next leader of the party is to get us into government. Remember, we can spend as long as we like debating what we'd like to do in government. The choice that Labour Party members have to make is who can get us into government. Because unless we get into government, none of our aspirations are going to be possible. I think that in respect of climate change, though, we've got a really important challenge, which is to make sure it doesn't slip off the agenda. Remember, the Tories and the Libs have done nothing on climate change over the last 3 months. It's completely been airbrushed out of their agenda and out of their script, and I think that's very worrying, because it's going to be tempting for them to think that now is the time to row back on our climate change commitments. I'm very proud to have been the person who authored the climate change bill. It became the Climate Change Act. It's probably the most radical piece of environmental legislation in the world, because it requires not just all future governments to cut emissions by 2050, but it also spreads the responsibility for tackling climate change from the Environment Department to being an energy issue, an employment issue, a foreign policy issue. And I think that it's at the heart of international development, because as you say, there's a double whammy on people in the developing world, that not only did they not cause the problem, but they're likely to be doubly hit by the consequences of it. And I've seen it for myself, not just in Bangladesh, but in Kenya and in other countries. And I think we have to make sure that we've got a green international policy as well as a green national policy if we're to fulfil not just our self-interest, but our moral obligations. I think that development has attained a special place in the British international agenda and in the British financial debate, because it's about what it says about us as a country, about our morality, but also about our willingness to see that we have interests joined with people right around the world. And I think it's very, very important that, having climbed up the hill to put international development as one of those core propositions about what it means to be British and how we live out our responsibilities, we need to stick to that.